Alrighty, last bit. We're almost there. The rest of chapter 7. So we're going to talk about the War of 1812. So we're kind of rushing through this little time period here, and we are going to end up with how we get to the War of 1812. Alright, so the Napoleonic Wars in Europe and the Atlantic are eventually going to bring us into their conflict. So the Napoleonic Wars are occurring, so Napoleon's taking over France, he's out there fighting, yada, yada, yada. So the British Navy is going to start impressing Americans into service from merchant ships. That basically means they're stealing Americans off of ships and making them be British merchants, or British sailors, essentially. The Embargo Act of 1807 is going to keep American ships from leaving port until the French and British restrictions have been lifted. This is going to be done during Jefferson's presidency, and there's going to be a lot of people who are not happy with this, especially the merchants. The American economy is going to suffer drastically. Madison gets elected in 1808, and he is going to go along with what Jefferson's been doing, and he will continue to restrict American trade. So that is the embargo of 1807. Republicans from the West are going to blame Great Britain, obviously, because they're impressing people, yeah. Shawnee War Chief Tecumseh is going to rebuild the Western Confederacy of Indians and mobilize his people and others for war. And violence is going to break out between the Native peoples and white Americans. The British are going to help the Indians. So war is going to break out between the United States and Great Britain in June of 1812. The U.S. is arguing that Britain has violated the nation's commercial rights by impressing our soldiers. So that is a justifiable complaint. All right. So you have the War of 1812. So this is the U.S. invasion of, the U.S. are going to try and invade British Canada because they're figuring, oh, well, we're already at war. We might as well just add one to it. This is not going to be successful. They're basically staying on the offensive in the West. In the East, New England Federalists are going to oppose the war completely, and they're going to prohibit invasion of Canada in the North. The war goes very poorly. In the Southwest, Andrew Jackson, who is a slaveholding planter, and a force of Tennessee militiamen are successfully going to defeat the British and the Spanish-supported Indians. New Englanders are going to continue to oppose the war. The war is going to cost us $88 million, and it's going to increase the national debt to $127 million. The other thing that is going to occur in 1814 is the British will put the White House on fire. They will catch the White House on fire and try to burn it down. This is going to be the famous story of Dolly Madison taking George Washington's portrait and saving it from the White House, and that portrait still hangs in the White House today. By 1815, Britain is going to call for peace. So basically, Britain just gives up. They're just tired of fighting at this point. They have been fighting for a couple hundred years. And they just kind of call uncle, I guess you could say. So I don't know that the Americans actually would have won this war if the British hadn't just given up. But they do. We signed the Treaty of Ghent in 1814. That's going to put the borders back to where they were. Andrew Jackson has no idea that the war is over. So he has a victory over British forces in the Battle of New Orleans before the news of the peace treaty reaches him. But this is going to lift American morale, and this is what's going to make Jackson a national hero, his battles there. And this is going to be one of the things that will contribute to him winning the presidency later on. So these are the states in 1812, the territories in 1812, and we don't lose anything, we don't gain anything from the War of 1812. All right. John Marshall, the next Supreme Court Justice, 3 main principles influence his thinking. So judicial authority, supremacy of natural law, and traditional property rights. So these are going to be the things that will kind of dominate his decisions. Dominance of national or state statutes was again asserted by the Marshall Court. And so when you see something like that, the Marshall Court, that means that it is John Marshall who is the Chief Justice. So they will call the group of men at the time based off of whoever is the Supreme Court Justice. All right. There's a lot of fear of tyranny of the majority, so Marshall is going to advocate protecting the property rights of the individual. John Quincy Adams, who is John Adams' son. Citizens and political leaders are going to embrace the political Republican Party. John Adams is a part of that party. He helps negotiate the Treaty of Ghent. He serves 2 terms, and not just well, he does it brilliantly, as Secretary of State under President Monroe. He is going to be the one who writes the Monroe Doctrine. It states that Americans are no longer open for colonization from European powers and pledges that the U.S. would not interfere in the internal concerns of European nations. So John Quincy Adams has way more success as Secretary of State than he ever has as president when he becomes president a little later on. Oh, actually, I think he's the 5th president. Anyway, he is a very intelligent man, very well read, speaks numerous languages. He's an attorney. He writes well, he speaks well. He just, like his dad, not really a people person. But he will write the Monroe Doctrine, and the thing you want to remember about the Monroe Doctrine is it basically tells Europe to stay out. It says, we are not open for any kind of European colonization over here in the Americas. Later on, we will get the Roosevelt corollary that will come with Theodore Roosevelt, and there will be more conversations then about the Monroe Doctrine. But this will be a largely underutilized document until that time. This is John Marshall, Chief Justice John Marshall, done by Chester Harding in 1830. And then, of course, this is how the land we had. So this is what it's going to look like in 1818 with the treaty that we signed with Great Britain. So you see the kind of turquoisey color, that's the United States in 1783. The green is going to be the Louisiana Purchase. 1818, we'll get that green and white striped land from Spain. We'll get the land that is kind of green and tan in 1819. And then the land in Florida will eventually be occupied by the United States. All right, so we will finally get all of Florida by 1819. And there will be some interesting stories when we get to Jackson with Florida and the natives that live there. So that should wrap us up on Chapter 7. That gets us through our first 4 presidents. That's exciting, I know. Hopefully painless, we'll see. But please let me know if you have any questions. And I will catch you soon. So good afternoon, morning, or evening. Have a great day.